Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, August the 14th. Yeah, I had a moment going, is it the 4th? It's the 14th. And it is a beautiful sunshiny day here. Fantastic weather. Slurpee season is in full bloom. Love it, love it, love it. As usual, I have to hurry up and get through this so that I can take my Slurpee and go sit outside. And my plan for today is to sit out on my big sectional outside on the big deck underneath the umbrella so I don't get burned with my Slurpee and watching Jen Lee's 3.5-hour extravaganza. I can't wait to watch it. I have to say I am way behind in my Flosstube watching. The interesting thing I discovered is while I was working on White Christmas by the Victoria Sampler, I wasn't watching a lot of Flosstube while I was stitching because I had to concentrate. So I just, I had, something innocuous going on in the background where I didn't really have to pay attention. And the problem is that I discovered I get more stitching done when it's not Flosstube. No big surprise. So I'm behind in my Flosstube watching. Several of you who watch me, I'm really sorry, I'm behind. I'm sort of catching up in like chunks. Like I pick a Flosstuber and I go, how many am I behind? And then I sort of binge watch all of them and sort of go, okay, they're caught up. But in the meantime, 7, 8, 12 other videos have come out. I will say I watched Teresa Kitten Stitcher, no, that's wrong, Teresa Little Stitcher from England this week. She's got a great video out. I will put a link to that. She went to a Chatelaine retreat. I love when people go to those retreats and show sort of like, there was a brag table and sort of a whip table. So some were finished and some were finished. Some were finished and framed. Some were whips. It was awesome. So if you have interest in Chatelaine designs at all, it was a great video and I recommend it. It was fantastic. So Teresa, thank you so much for going to the retreat in England and showing us those tables of finishes and whips, and it was glorious. Loved looking at them. Okay, comments from last week. So thank you to those of you who said that you found the videos about the stands that I use interesting. I'm glad you found it interesting. Those are the stands I have. Several of you commented that you have Lowry stands because you need them to your stand to come in from the side, as opposed to mine, which my floor stands that I use come in from the front. Which, yeah, if you are using recliners or whatever for whatever reason. Yeah, Lowry is a popular one if you need your stand to come in from the side. The critical thing about stands is you need to know your stitching style. So like I say, given that I like to put my projects through their gymnastics, I had specific requirements. If your projects don't really do the gymnastics and are a little more stable, there are lots of other options that may work for you better than the ones that I have. So know what your needs are, and critically know what your real estate, how much real estate you have for a stand, what the floor print of some of those floor stands are. Some of them are bigger than others, and you just need to make sure, quite frankly, before you invest in a floor stand, because they're not, a $20, good thing. They're expensive. And the quality ones are expensive because hopefully they're gonna last your stitching lifetime. So know what your floor, how much real estate you have for a stand, because better to ask questions up front than to order it, receive it, and go, ooh, that makes it really tight. Like if you aren't able to sort of, have a spot for your floor stand when you're not stitching, that's a problem because they're also not easy to take up and put down. So those are my tips on the floor stands. Okay. Okay. thank you also to those of you who commented that you really you enjoyed seeing White Christmas fully finished. Cheryl, I think you're hysterical, because Cheryl said you certainly have time to get that thing fully framed before fully finished, which would be framing in this case, before Christmas, because there's 139 days till Christmas. Thanks for that. I'm still gonna say, all bets are off as to whether or not that gets fully finished before Christmas. As I say, I've got a framing budget. There might be other things in the bag that take framing precedence over that. Haven't decided. Check back later. Thank you also to those of you who commented on my former framer passing away. Yeah, he was a wonderful, 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 wonderful man. But lived a good life till he was 92. So yeah, the funeral was last Monday. So it was nice to, hey, COVID times, it was nice to be able to actually go to a funeral. That sounds like a really horrible sentence, but I really appreciated that, you know, I was able to go to the funeral as opposed to watching it online, which has been the case for some funerals that have occurred. Char, yes, she commented that she was working on the JBW. She was working on 3 ornaments, Christmas ornaments to gift to her children for Christmas. And yes, I've been watching your progress on Instagram, and they look lovely. And between you and Rachel Q, I just want to stitch the JBW ornaments. And I know there's a JBW ornament sale going on, but I have other things. These people do not announce their sales well in advance. These random sales that keep popping up. I have a 5-year plan. You can't just pop those things up. But anyway, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, Lena, excuse me. All right. Lena commented, sorry, I'm going to have to take a drink. Great. Don't know what that was. Anyway, Lena commented that she was wondering if I could do a couple of things. If I could do a video of the lamps that I use. Lena, my question to you is going to be like, can you be more specific about what you're looking for? I have linked the lamp before, so just let me know if you need to link that again, that I use. So it's readily available. I've got several LNSs that carry it. It's also available on Amazon. It's the same lamp. I just have 2 of them, one for each stitching spot. So I'm not sure a video about the lamps would be that helpful, but let me know if you've got a more specific question you're looking for. And I think Lita also commented that she was wondering it'd be interesting to see me stitching on my stands, and the answer is, man, nobody wants to watch that. I'll do. Thank you for your interest. I can assure you, nobody's really going to want to watch me. I'm not going to do a stitch with me video, because that's just, anyway, that's not for me. And then several of you commented that my channel has passed the 1,000 subscriber mark, and the answer is yes, it has just. So I am planning on doing a 1,000 subscriber giveaway when I've got to pull it together. So it's probably not going to happen until after Labor Day, because I've, got to get my act pulled together. Also, with people being away on vacation and blah, 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 if I'm going to turn it into a celebration, I feel like September is like probably when people are more likely to be around. Yeah, it's coming. Also, the reason for the delay is my numbers go up and down, which is totally fine. You've got to find the channels that work for you, and etc., etc. There are lots of Flosstubers out there. There's somebody for everybody. So my numbers go up and down. So I was kind of waiting to make sure that I was actually stable above 1,000 before I went, I've reached 1,000, because I don't want to be the 1,000 and then a week later be back under 1,000. So I'm just sort of I just want to make sure that it's a stable above 1,000. And, you know, so in September is probably when the giveaway is going to be. But thank you for noticing that, because I think some of you noticed before even I noticed. It's because I don't spend my life focused on how many subscribers and all that kind of stuff I have, because it doesn't change my stitching plan actually. But I appreciate all of you, whether you're new, old, following, or whatever. I appreciate everybody who stops by to have a little visit and see how my stitching journey is going. Okay, so from last week, I talked about this. I talked about this last week, so I just was gonna. I know I said it, but I just went. I'm just gonna show it again. So remember, I said, "Here's my lovely tag." Whoops, with all the glowies. Right. So here's what one of the Stony Creek pre-finished pillow things, and there's my lovely note in there to remind me when I go back to stitch on this which magazine I'm looking for. Because, you know, it's gonna have to, I need my chart to marinate for a bit. I bought the thing while it was available, and at some point I will get around to stitching this. All right, so what have I been stitching on this week? So I feel like I've had a very productive week, which is great. So let's go through the stitching. So I've got a couple of finishes this week. So first off, as always, I was working on my Cottage of the Month by Country Cottage Needleworks. This is what it's supposed to look like, and I have successfully finished mine. Yes, we were very close last week, and there it is, fully finished. Happy with that. Fully finished. It's not an FFO, it's just an FO. I've finished all of the stitching on it. I have not fully finished it. Clearly, it's hanging off of a board. Sorry, I was just waiting to see if I sneezed. Anyway, so it's finished, and that's great. So that I finished that pretty early in the week, which so when I finished this, I did reward number 1. You're not going to see reward number 1 for a minute. So I did reward number 1. And then I moved on to my next identified project for working in August, which my theme is August Heat. So this is, I worked on The Banquet by Frida's Fancy Stitching, which is a canvas work piece. And again, that's what it's supposed to look like when it's fully finished. And mine, fully finished. Apparently I'm going to enjoy saying fully finished. It's not fully finished either. The stitching is finished. And mine is now finished, which is, just trying to decide if I need to put the board in. I'm going to put the board in. Okay. So there you go. So what did I do? A couple of things. So when you last saw this, I was way down here, and I had part of this block done. It wasn't completely done. So I finished this block down here, and then did all of these, this side band all up. I came back and I took out the previous metallic that I had used in this one. Remember, this is the one that the 086C in a number 8 braid is no longer being made. And so I went with the alternate, which was okay, but I didn't love it. And so what I've ended up doing is I've gone down to a number 4 braid in 86C. I think the 86C, even in the number 4, has also been discontinued, but I like the colorway better. So I started using it down here in some of the other metallics, and it worked out just fine. So I went back and took out my original metallic in there. so I'd used a number 8 here for this in the first go around. This is now using the number 4. I had a debate saying, you know, maybe if I doubled it, and I just went, I was okay with how it came out. It's not quite as dense a stitch as it would be if I had used the number 8 braid. But in this case, which is a common sentiment to me, color trumped count. So it should be a number 8 braid. I didn't have it. I had a number 4 braid. I used it anyway. I think it's okay. I think the 8 probably would have looked better, but I didn't have it. So there you go. And then I also did this outer border all the way around it. And Frida does make a comment in the chart that sort of says you can do that outer border in any color of your choice. She tells you she used the DMC 809 to do it in the model stitch, which is what I've done here as well. But she has sort of said, you know, if you used any of the fibers, any of the colors used in this design, it would look great. Would change the look a little bit. So you could have used anything. I went with the called for because I've seen the model and I like the model and all that kind of stuff. So I stuck with believe it or not, I stuck with the called for to do that. So that took me a couple of days worth of stitching and a bit to get all of that accomplished. In hindsight, you know, so originally this was published as a mystery. You all know I can't do a mystery. So I didn't get this until the whole thing was done because I'm like that. Even though I had a friend who'd seen the model and said, you're going to love it. I went, yeah, but until I see it, I can't decide. In hindsight, what I would have done is I probably would have done sort of gotten through a bit and worked these stitches as opposed to doing them all at once. That was a bit, after a while, there's 14 of them, and after I had done about 7 or 8 of them, I was like, how many more of these do I have left to go? There's a lot of counting of how many of these do I have left to go? As well as I probably would have started working on this border earlier on. You know, it was a lot. It's not that the stitching is hard. It's a diagonal satin stitch. She calls it a Gobelin stitch. Again, we all know that my thing is most specialty stitches, as far as I'm concerned, are satin stitches in various forms. So it may have a fancy name like Gobelin. I call it a diagonal satin stitch. It works just fine. But there is my second finish for this week. So I'm feeling very productive, which meant reward number 2 came along. We'll do the rewards in a bit. But yeah, very, very happy that I've got the banquet finished. And so, dear Cheryl, this is the problem, is that I think the banquet is rating higher in the framing budget than White Christmas. But yeah, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Love it. The Banquet by Frida's Fancy Stitching, 8 charts, canvas work, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Love it. Anyway, actually, so just because I've had a surprisingly productive week. Let me see if I could get a grip on this. There's one. And here's 2. Yeah, because that's where I'm hoping is going to end up being the screen grab. Okay, so there's my 2 finishes for this week. Already feeling productive. Okay, and as always, I am working on a sampler of stitches. So this is a series of 9 charts by the Drawn Thread that I'm doing that's upside down. A series of 9 charts by the Drawn Thread that I am doing as a sal with Sarah the Stitchin' Mommy, with the goal being to accomplish 1 letter every 2 weeks, because that means by the end of the year, all of this will be completed. And I'm on track. my first sal that I'm actively participating in. Don't get me wrong, I join a lot of sals really because I'm getting the charts and I'm doing nothing with them. This is my first active sal that I'm participating in. It's very exciting because I'm doing well. I'm keeping up to date with it. So this week I was beginning to work on the letter R. And here's where I got to this week. So originally what I was planning on doing is I said to myself I was going to come in and I was going to try to get this section done. But I got in here and I went, this is pulled work using Soie 103. This is pulled work using Soie 103. So I went, okay, I'll do this and then I'm going to work over here. Except this is also pulled work with Soie 103. And so the evening that I was working on this, I just looked at it and went, but I don't want to do pulled work with Soie 103. So I didn't. So didn't quite get as much accomplished on this as I had hoped. So really, I got the green in here as cross stitches. The pink, or the mauve as they like to call it, is the rose, something rose stitch. Okay, it's the rose stitch, not something rose. It's rose stitch, that was okay to do. This is just regular, the navy blue is regular cross stitching with rose stitches being the lighter pink ones. And then over here I did the light blue, which is the rapid stitch. So unfortunately this week, whether I like it or not, my goal is to finish the letter R, which means 3 areas of pulled work with using the Soie 103. It's not that I have a problem doing it and whatever. It's just the night that I was working on this, I just went, but I don't want to do that. So I didn't. So this week, when I work on this, I'm not going to have a choice because I need to get that done. So I'm going to do all of the pulled work, and then the reward is going to be working on the bottom, which is the Roman stitch and... Sorry, that's a lie. I said these were rhodes. These are rice. These are rice stitches in here in the letter. The rhodes are the top of the flowers that go down here. So I'm going to do all the pulled work first and then reward myself with the Roman stitch and the rhodes, which in my head when I look at it, that will be easy to, at that point, I can just look and go, okay, I've got the last 7 flowers to get done and it'll be okay. But the pulled work I'm going to have to concentrate on, so it's going to have to be an evening where I've got... So originally I was sort of working on it on Sunday nights, you know, so get the video, get it up, loading, and all the processing stuff that happens, getting it loaded up and working on that. But it's summer and it's slurpy weather. So Sunday nights are no longer good nights for stitching because I'm usually outside, which is positive. So better to be outside. So I usually work on this a different day, but I'm still devoting 1 night a week to working on this, which is how I'm keeping up with it. Which again, I'm very happy with my progress on this. I'm very happy that I'm keeping up to date with my sal. I feel like I'm doing well on this. So that is that's that whip. So worked on the cottage, did a reward, worked on the banquet, did a reward, worked on sampler of stitches. I still had extra stitching time, and in my plan for this week I had something else that I was going to be working on for that extra time, but I hauled it out, and it's a chart where I'm making some changes, more than just fabric. This is when I'm actually using the called for colors for the most part, but I'm adjusting the chart, and I pulled it out and I was like, where are my notes? Because I'd figured out what my goal was and how I was adjusting it, and there's no piece of paper in there that says what I'm supposed to be changing. So that was a little bit of a problem. So I spent a little bit of time this week trying to remember what it was. So I pulled it together. My goal for this week is actually to work on that. Now that I've remembered one, write it down, get it figured out, make some progress, check back next week. So at that point, knowing that I couldn't work on that, I pulled out another whip and went, well, since I have extra time, let's get going on something else. So this, what I worked on was my Stitch Con piece by Sue Hillis Designs, because I do want to get this finished in 2022. This is the year I went to Stitch Con. I know originally I'd said, you know, who knows when I'm going to work on this. There is a open-ended sale going for this, so no specific dates and all that kind of stuff, which is great because I'm not keeping up with it. Lots of people have finished it. I don't remember what the hashtag for it is. I want to say it's StitchCon 2022 Sal, but I'll confirm that and I will put that in the notes section below in case you want to see other people's work. Lots of people have finished it. Lots of people have finished it. That doesn't bother me at all. There's a lot of time left in 2022 for me to work on this and get it done. But when I had that extra time, I pulled it out and went, let's make some progress on this. So here's where I'm at now. So I got the cat. So this is the cat that lives at Keepsakes, who I did not meet, which I'm very glad. I'm very allergic to cats. My story is my first encounter with cat hair, not even the cat itself, landed me in the hospital. So I'm very aware of cats. This is the cat from Keepsakes, whose name is 310. As other people who have been working on this have pointed out, the funny thing about this is that the cat 310 is not stitched with DMC 310, which is what she was named after. It's stitched with 3371. Hey, it looks like a black cat. It's totally fine. I did the scissors, stork scissors, and the thimble. And what I'm doing, as I'm finishing each one of these elements, I'm doing the back stitching. So I've certainly ended up in the camp of, so way back in the beginning of time, generally what people were saying is do all of your cross stitches, and when you've done all of your cross stitch in a piece, then you go back and you do the back stitching, which is how I was taught. I have now learned that leaving all of the back stitching to the end is probably why so many people dislike back stitching, because you get to the end and you feel accomplished because you've got all of your cross stitches done, but now there's all of this back stitching to do. And that sort of takes away from the enjoyment of sort of finishing all of the cross stitches. So what I am doing, what I've learned and what I'm doing is I'm not leaving all back stitching till the end, generally, because that's just going to be, it's going to take away from my enjoyment of the piece. So as, you know, so I finished stitching 310 and then I went in and immediately did the back stitching. So it's hard to tell, but the back stitching is the whiskers and sort of some outlining of the top and around the tail. You know, so the stork scissors are back stitched, the thimble is back stitched. So I stitched all of this and then went back in and did all of the back stitching immediately. Now I still have to go back in and fix my needle up here. But if you can't tell, I'm following a color theme. So I didn't do the ball of wool. I did not do the scissor fob, and I did not do the tomato pin cushion. Why? Because these all have very common colors in between them. So the next time this comes out is when I'm going to work on those red elements. And that's when I will go back in, because I have them out. That's when I will go back in and fix my needle. But don't worry, every time I look at that needle and go, that's not right, it needs to be fixed, it will get fixed the next time red threads come out. So I moved this because I have the chart in Markup RXP. I have moved it from being about having 25% of it to 45%. It's technically 45.5% complete on this piece, just by stitching these 3 elements. So I'm still not at the halfway mark. But the next time this comes out, I'm pretty sure I will get over halfway. So again, I want to get it finished in 2022. We're not close enough to the end of 2022 where I feel like I need to do a big, deep push on this. But hey, progress is progress, and it's moved it along nicely this week. So my expectation is it will be coming out again. I'm just not 100% sure of when that's going to happen. Okay. And I just heard the big click. So the funny thing is when you have needle minders on multiple projects, if you're not paying attention when you set them down, the needle minders stick together and then you have to extract them. All right, so that is the whips that I've worked on this week. So then the rewards that I've got set up, which again was an adjustment to my plan originally for this month, is a new start. And I'm happy. So I've had 2 finishes, so accomplished 2 goals. Working on the StitchCon piece did not constitute accomplishing a goal, so there's no reward associated with that one. So 2 rewards for the 2 finishes this week. So I am working on, this is Musical Christmas by Artistic Needle. This is a very, very old chart that I inherited when my mom was getting rid of her cross-stitching stuff because she wasn't doing it anymore. The copyright is 1989, so I don't think eBay, D-Stash groups, I think that's your best bet if you're looking for this, but we'll get into the complications of what this means. So when I got this, my mom had purchased this specialty fabric when she got it. And so this fabric is called Christmas Shenandoah linen, and it was produced, I'm pretty sure, I want to say it's by Zweigart, but let's just, let me see if I can't confirm that. This one is a little more confusing as to whether or not it was a Zweigart or a Wichelt, because they've got their, they've got the people who provided them the stuff, but some of them are actual stores. Anyway, it's a 28 count linen. It is no longer being manufactured. I did have a quick look on, I did Google to see if I could find some, and I found one store that I think still has like a fat half in stock. I did not confirm that with them, but I will put a link to that store down below in case you have any interest in this. It is a 28 count linen. My mom got a cut that was sort of 1 square. Let's do this. So 1 square in width, with, you know, fabric around the sides for edging, because really her goal was to do this big table runner here, which of course she didn't work on. And so it's Shenandoah. Why is it Christmas Shenandoah? Because of these fibers that are making up the squares, which are red, green, and there is a gold metallic in there as well. So running down the center of this, there are 9 squares for me to fill in. So I went through all the options. The instruments that are in this book are a French horn, a hand harp, a regular harp, a trumpet, a bugle, a bass. They call it a bass. I feel like they call it a bass. I feel like they were aiming for a violin and they ended up with a viola, a drum, and a trombone. So I have also sort of worked out which of these, I'm not doing all of these instruments on my particular table runner. So I've picked out which ones I'm doing. I've picked out the order that they're going to be appearing on this. And so the rewards certainly during this month are going to be working on one of the squares in this table runner. So there's only 9 squares in totality. I've said to a friend, I think there's a possibility that I could get this done before Christmas. So again, White Christmas will fall behind. Anyway, so I had 2 rewards this week, which means I did 2 squares on this. So square number 1, so this is at the very bottom of the table runner. I did the drum. Now, this is another example of I have finished all of the cross stitching in this square. I do need to run out and get the 002C cord. So there's back stitching around the top of the drum to outline it, as well as there's a little bit of back stitching down here, just sort of to do like the tensioners that you see on a snare drum. I also need it because I'll need it when I'm doing things like the strings on the harp and all that kind of stuff. So I do need to run out and get that. I have already called ahead. The store has it on hold for me. I just need to run out and pick it up. So that is square number 1, where all of the cross stitches are done. Not technically complete because I've got a little bit of back stitching left to do on this, but I was happy with my progress on this. There are 413 stitches in that square, so I thought that was a very productive reward number 1. It stitches up quite quickly, you know, so this was easily knocked off in an evening. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, no, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 colors in this particular design. You know, so very manageable. You know, there's, I want to say there's like the berries, which are done in DMC 321. There's like 30 stitches in totality of that. So it's, you know, this was an easy sit down in an evening and get it done. So that was reward number 1. Not surprisingly, reward number 2 is another square, and you'll laugh. It's the exact same one. It's the drum. It's just the drum at the other end. So yes, I'm going to be weird and go, no, I promise you I did 2 drums. There you go. So 2 out of the 9 squares completed. Hopefully if I get my goals accomplished this week, we will get, I'm hoping for at least 1, maybe 2 more accomplished this week, but I'm making progress on this, which I think is fantastic. Okay, so thank you Mom for buying the chart and the specialty fabric. And again, this is a perfect example of when you're buying something and it calls for specialty something. I'm very, very, very grateful that my mother bought the Christmas Shenandoah fabric when she bought this chart, because it's not available now. So like I say, I found one shop that has a piece of this, but it is I think it's a fat half that they show that they've got, which means this is a full length to get the full 9 squares, which is 50, so this is 55 inches long. So the fat half wouldn't, I mean, I could still get it and see how many squares are in there and do something with it, but it just wouldn't allow me to do all 9, and I'm really glad that I get to do all 9. So again, I'm very glad that my mom bought the specialty fabric when she got the chart, because it was available. It was readily available at that point in time. So yeah, I'm very happy with this. So two out of the 9 squares have been accomplished. And again, this was an unexpected addition to my plan for, I'm just going to hold it up one more time because I'm really happy with it, going, look, I'm making progress on something that wasn't in the plan for this year at all. As always, my plans are very, very firm, and I've got my 5-year stitching plan, which is, you know, set in stone right up until the moment that I decide to change, add, swap, whatever. It's always good to have a firm plan that is fully adaptable, adjustable, anyway, whatever. So this is the piece that I'm going to be using for the month of August as my rewards to try to get more of these done. And again, they're pretty quick stitches. I scanned this into Markup RXP, which is why I know that there's 413 stitches in there. Yep. I've become a numbers junkie now that I've got stuff in Markup RXP. Now it doesn't work on everything. So I didn't have the Banquet in Markup RXP because it's got all the specialty stitches and all that kind of stuff. So I have no idea how many stitches I did in getting, you know, chart number 8 finished on the Banquet because it's specialty and I am not sitting there and counting after the fact. If Markup RXP will tell me how many stitches I've stitched, I'm totally fine with that. I am not counting on my own. Anyway, so I can say 413 for the first drum, 413 for the second drum. It's almost 826 stitches on that project alone, plus 2 finishes, plus sampler of stitches, plus my StitchCon whip. I had a good stitching week. I'm not expecting this next week to be as productive. I've got a number of things on the calendar this week that will cut into my, that will make it maybe not quite so productive from a stitching standpoint, but I feel like I started August off strongly. We'll see how the rest of the month goes. And so that is all of the stitching that I've done this week. Stashquisitions. I was talking to a friend this week. She's like going, please tell me you have Stashquisitions to show this week. And the answer is no, I do not. My Stashquisitioning for this week is a complete goose egg, which is positive for me. It's like, I don't feel like I need to have to, I've got a large stash. I shouldn't have to be Stashquisition. It doesn't mean that I haven't placed an order. I did place an order. A friend and I are combined orders for something this week, you know, to save on the shipping. So at some point, probably in the next couple of weeks, I will have some Stashquisitions coming in from that order. Not too bad, fairly reasonable, but you'll laugh when you see what it is. And then somebody posted on Instagram a picture, and I've been looking at this thing as they've been working on it, and I really, really like it. And I don't have, it's a series of charts, and I don't have all the charts. So I might be having to place an order to get, oh, that's not true. I placed another order with traditional stitches, and at some point that will arrive too, but that's, anyway. Anyway, so it's not like I'm not doing Stashquisitioning. I just don't have anything for this week. There will be more coming. I just don't have anything for this week, which is totally fine. Because of course, Needlework Expo is coming. We are getting, we're now getting down to it where we're less with the sneak peeks, although there are people who are still putting sneak peeks out there. We all know I don't do well with the sneak peeks. I'm on the like, be done with the sneak peeks, just show me your stuff so I can assess. So there are multitudes of shops that have pages devoted to Needlework Expo and pre-ordering with them. So pick your LNS of choice, LNS, ONS, whatever you want, and look at what they've got and see what you're interested in. I will say, based on my knowledge of shops, the sooner you can tell them what you're interested in, just helps with them getting organized. And so Needlework Expo is the last weekend in August, and it's open for several days. But if you're placing your order at the last minute, it's not that you can't get your stuff and your L&S can't help you out. It just makes it, as far as I'm concerned, it makes it easier on the shops if you place your orders earlier as opposed to later, just because it helps them get their numbers and get organized. Because, you know, same thing with when the Nashville Needlework Market is on. There's a lot of shops involved. You've got to, you know, placing your orders, etc., etc. I'm like, let's try to make things nice for our shops so we can help them out. The other interesting thing is, of course, different shops post different things at different times. So I have been certainly looking at several shops and what they're posting about Needlework Expo, because what they're showing, none of them are identical, which I always is fascinating to me. So the different shops that I'm looking at have different combinations of things, and none of, like, some of the things are showing up on all of the sites, which is great. Some of them are only showing up on some of the shops, which, hey, everybody, you know, each of the shops are making decisions based on their customer base and what they've seen being purchased, and 27 other things that go into a small business. I just am fascinated by looking at the differences, which means I, of course, I'm looking at multiple shops and what they're posting, so I can see what's going on, and then we'll see what I end up deciding from that point. So Needlework Expo coming up, have a look, place your orders with your shops for the things that you're interested in. All right. And with that, we're going to get to the topic. I'm hoping that this is going to be sub an hour. This is not a very long topic, because I probably should have talked about it last week. Let's talk World Cross Stitching Day, which was the Friday that has just come and gone. So it was August the 12th. But I always enjoy watching people posting about it. I certainly was stitching on Friday, and I laughed because I saw somebody post. Now, again, I get confused where exactly I saw the post and who it was. I'm sorry, I forget, but I laughed because whether it was an actual post or a comment on a post, somebody was going like, I don't understand this. Isn't, like, cross-stitching an everyday activity? Which I laughed at, which is my goal. I try to stitch most days, and like I say, so this week was a great week for me. I got a lot accomplished, but I totally acknowledge that that's not the case for everybody. There's life going on, and life takes all sorts of forms. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. Life can get complicated and messy and unpleasant, and 12 other things are going on. And sometimes all you can manage to do from a cross-stitching perspective is scroll through an Instagram feed or check, see what's happening in your Facebook group. And if that's all you're able to do at certain points in time, that's just life, and that's okay too. It doesn't mean you're any less of a stitcher than anybody else. It just means you're in a season of whatever, and that's okay. And some people have more time than others, and that's okay too. There's a couple of people that I watch look at their stitching, and they get a huge amount accomplished, a disgusting amount accomplished, and it makes me feel like I'm not stitching fast enough, and I'm not stitching fast enough for the stash that I have. And so I tell myself it's because they have nothing else going on in life. They don't work outside the house. They have no children. They have no pets to look after. They have no family complications. Even though I know most of them have some combination of those things, I tell myself that they don't have any of those things, and that they are fully at the luxury of being able to spend all of their time stitching, and they have a chef, and the meals are brought to them, and they have, a housekeeper who does all their house cleaning for them and their laundry and all that kind of stuff. So all they can do is spend their time stitching. Even though I know that's not really the case, that's what I tell myself about them. And that's how they get so much accomplished, and that's okay too. So if you've had a great stitching week, that's great. If you haven't had a great stitching week, that's okay too. That's just how life goes. I do hope that you did take some time to participate in cross-stitching somehow on last Friday, for World Cross Stitching Day. some people were starting, like, I loved watching what people were doing. You know, there were people who were going, it's World Cross Stitching Day, I have to have a new start. My goal is like, it's World Cross Stitching Day, let's just make sure I get some stitching done, which I was successful at that. I'm pretty sure that was the day I got drum number 2 done. So that was positive. I felt like a 413 stitch day was a pretty good stitching day. So yeah, that was, I hope you had time. There have been a couple of people who have posted free charts for that. Some of them are on Instagram. If you look under the hashtag, I think it's World Cross Stitching Day, but again, I'll confirm that and put that in the notes section below. You'll see some of them pop up. There are also a couple of freebies on the World. So the World Cross Stitching Day actually has its own website. And I finally got smart and learned that I should bring my phone in with me so that I can call things up. I'm just going to pop this, see if I can't. worldcrossstitchday.com. So they've got a couple of charts for download. So there's this, whoops, ooh, lots of glare on that, sorry. Ready, Set, Stitch, which of course can be done in any color of your choosing. The 2022 Keepsake Chart, which, so these are all free on the World Cross Stitching Day. So this is the 2022 Keepsake Chart. Nothing like stitching the day away. And they also have all of the previous Keepsake charts are also available. I'm just going to do a quick all free for the taking. So I will link all of this in the notes section below. So if you're interested in any of those, go grab them. And I'm going to do one more thing because they're free. Don't forget, you know my mantra. If you find a chart and it's free, download it, download it when you see it. Because it is not necessarily always going to be free. You know, some designers publish charts where they sort of say this is free from period X to Y, and I'm specifically thinking of Long Dog Samplers when they made Pandemic free. Very, very gracious, huge gift from Jules at Long Dog Samplers, for which I'm dear Long Dog Samplers, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that gift. I appreciate it. I haven't stitched on it. I don't know when it's showing up, but anyway, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciated the gift. Don't take for granted that those charts are always going to be available and are always going to be free. So when you see it, download it, because you just never know when things are going to disappear. And in some cases, you know, the designer, I give the designers, if they're giving you a free design, that is a gift. And thank you so much to the many designers out there who have designed free charts, because I have absolutely have received those gifts, and I'm very grateful for all of them. But they're also running a business, and so if they choose at some point to say, I'm, you know, pulling these things and I'm going to make them a not free chart anymore, you know, so like the Victoria Sampler, the 2021 Stitch Along Sal, a year in stitches, I think is what it was called, was free in the Facebook group for a year. For a year you had access to go get those charts. And yes, come the end of 2021, and they were very clear about it. They said it's only free till December 31st. After December 31st, they will be showing up on the Victoria Sampler page. They're still available, but you will have to purchase them. So we all know I went like a mad thing and downloaded them all while they were free. You can still get them, but you have to, now they're not hugely expensive, but they're more expensive than they were when they were free. So if you see a free chart, download the chart. Okay, last but not least, this is not related to the topic at all, but I laughed when I was uploading last week's video. well, and cobbling it together, and went, so did everybody enjoy seeing the, you know, the spare shoes that I keep by the back door? That, anyway, laughed, was like, those maybe should have been moved. If they'd been moved to the other side of the door, it would have been a little nicer, but I was like, that's life. I wasn't really paying attention to the shoes by the door, but anyway. The other one that I laughed at is whether or not anybody noticed this weird thing sitting over here on top of my, technically this is a candle holder actually. But I looked at it and went, I wonder if anybody's noticed the weird thing here. So this is my current year orts. And what I'm doing is, yes, I've got ort containers and all that kind of stuff, but I'm now at the point where I've decided that I'm just going to keep the ornament handy because I want them to go into the jar in order as I'm stitching through the year. So the funny thing is I look at the bottom and go like, so you've got, I have these moments where I go like, what was I stitching at the beginning? Like some of them, like there's some pearl cottons in here, which I can see and I go, I know what that was. That was when I was working on parts 5, 6, 7, and 8 from earlier in the year, because I did work on the banquet earlier this year. But you know, there's some interesting colors in here. I'm having a moment going like, when did I do all of this yellow and red? It's like yellow, red, and orange. Like I'm having like that's a clear blob of something. I'm having a moment where I'm going, I don't know what that is. So I have to go back and look through my stitching and see what that is. But you know, things that I've cut off. When I did the cutting of the threads for the hardanger for White Christmas, all of those went into here. So I hope I'm not getting hiccups now. Anyway, there's metallic threads. There are beads, like I've come across a couple of beads that actually you couldn't sew on because they're essentially filled in. So those went into here. I've broken a couple of needles this year. Those are in here. So yeah, so all of it's in here. I'm sort of stuffing it as I go in, occasionally swirling it down. There's still loads of room left to go for the rest of the year. It tends to puff up, you know, as I'm working on stuff, so I periodically come in and, you know, squash it down. But there's loads of room left to go in this, right? You can see there's where I pulled out seashell. It's because of the glare, you can't see it. But I can go, there's where I pulled out seashell number 1 before I put in seashell number 2. Anyway, in case anybody saw this and went, what is that weird thing sitting off to the side? This is my ornament for 2022, which is now turned into my ort container. While I'm stitching at home, I don't take this while I'm traveling with my stitching, but this is where I'm putting them in so that they're going in the order that I'm cutting the orts off. Okay, last comment is just a quick reminder for anybody in the greater Calgary area here in Alberta. Even if you're visiting, if you're driving through or whatever, our next stitching get-together at the Signal Hill Library is next Saturday, the 20th from 9:30 to 12:30 at the Signal Hill Library. The time and the address for that library are going to be in the notes section down below. So if you have any interest in joining us, we'd love to see you on Saturday. And with that, that's all I've got for you this week. Okay, if I wrap it up really quickly, we'll be under an hour. So I hope you've had a good stitching week. Whichever form has been meaningful for you. Like I say, I acknowledge everybody's got some everybody at times has life complications. So I hope you've had a good stitching week for you. As always, I hope you're staying safe, thinking of the people of the Ukraine, thinking of a number of other places where there have been some disasters and some issues going on. I was listening to a report on how things are going in Afghanistan. Not so good over there, particularly for women. So I hope you are staying safe. Safety first, safety first, safety first. I hope you are staying healthy. I hope you're finding some time to do some stitching and that your stitching is bringing you enjoyment, contentment, peace, a mental health break. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.